We have a question that's coming on email from Dr. Meghna. Now, she purchased a flat in Dahisar in March 2004. The society where the flat is went for redevelopment in November 2013. Now, she got a new flat in October 2016. She even got a corpus fund and rent during the redevelopment period. She did not purchase any extra area for the flat and took whatever the builder gave her. Now, she plans to sell this flat. So, what she wants to know is when should she actually sell this flat so that her tax liabilities are minimum. She also wants to know the other options that are available to her.
See, basically, since you have purchased the original flat in 2004 and since the property has now got redeveloped, and assuming that you have got possession in 2016, I would consider the whole thing to be a long-term gain. However, the crux of the situation will depend upon how your agreement for redevelopment is worded. Because sometimes there could be a view taken by the tax department saying that the original flat was held by you, you surrendered that flat, and in exchange of that you got the new flat. Okay? The flat was surrendered maybe 2-3 years back when the redevelopment started, and the new flat has been got now. So therefore, in the intervening period, there is an exchange transaction. And just like a sale, exchange is also considered to be subject to capital gains. Although there is no actual technical capital gains because it is a house to house. So there is a reinvestment on the spot. So as far as capital gains is concerned, there is no issue. But the holding period is disturbed and it does not remain to be a long-term gain. The new asset is acquired when the new house was ready. Okay? So therefore, it is better to be on the safe side. You don't want to avoid any disputes or litigations. Wait for 3 years and then sell it.
Okay, so Pannkaj, essentially what you're saying is this. I could have lived in that property for 15 years, for 20 years.
Yes.
But once it goes into redevelopment, if I have not sold it till then, then it doesn't matter how long I have held the property. After I received possession of the new redeveloped flat, I have to hold it for another 3 years and then sell it.
Yeah, but that would essentially, it would again depend upon how the agreement for redevelopment is worded. Normally, when we do that this kind of drafting, then we take care that this situation doesn't arise.
What is it? What are the clauses that you should?
That will be too technical to explain.
But essentially, you need to ensure that your lawyer puts in those clauses to ensure that your rights are taken care of. The fact that you've lived in that particular property for 15 years, for 20 years, that fact is reflected and it is carried forward. Even though your property has gone into redevelopment. Now, that is something that you need to keep in mind when you get that agreement drafted.
In fact, there are case laws also which support this view that, there is a continuity of transaction and there is no question of exchange or this. But litigation always keeps happening. So, you have to be careful.
I'm spending some time on this, Pannkaj, but that is also because we are seeing a spate of redevelopment projects in Mumbai.
Yes.
And we understand that other cities are also looking to, get into redevelopment. So this is essentially something that should concern most home buyers who've been living in their homes for over 10 years now. Tell me this, when you go into redevelopment, like for instance in Mumbai, we know that there are two agreements that you make. One that you make with the developer as a society and one that you make with the developer as an individual flat owner, right? So the individual, this clause that you're talking about inserting in, that should be part of the individual agreement that you make with the
There would be one agreement
developer?
basically where you give the right to the builder. See, again, before I go into that, there are two types of properties. Most of the time, these are tenanted buildings which go for redevelopment. And when the tenanted building goes for redevelopment, it is a tenancy that comes to an end. Tenancy is also now a long-term asset. And when the tenancy comes to an end, you are getting the new ownership property. But whatever is the value of the tenanted property, that you are investing in the new ownership property automatically. Although the money doesn't flow to you and you are not giving it back to him, there is an automatic movement that happens. Therefore, it is considered that you have invested this amount under section 54 or 54F and therefore there is no capital gains. And the matter comes to an end. Now, when you get the ownership property, this is the first time that you have got the ownership property and therefore your long-term holding period starts from there. The earlier tenanted property came to an end, the building was broken down and there is nothing more remaining out of that. So, there you can't say that there is a continuous period. Okay? In this case, the question was that the person was holding a ownership property and this got another ownership property. Therefore, there is a possibility of saying that, look, I was always the owner and I continue to be the owner. But the other view is also there, that there could be, somebody could treat it as an exchange. Again, in that exchange, there will be no capital gains involved, but the long-term period will be disturbed.
Right.
So that is the only worry.
Tell me this, very quickly tell me this, the agreement that I signed with the developer, this clause that you're talking about needs to be part of that individual agreement, or the agreement that the society signs with the developer?
Individual agreement.
So, key thing for you to keep in mind, especially if your building is going into redevelopment, ensure that the agreement that you sign with the developer as an individual homeowner has a clause that protects your rights. Basically, that protects the fact that you have been living in that flat for a particular period of time, which could be 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, whatever. That needs to be enshrined in that agreement. You need to keep that in mind. Otherwise, you will have problems when you go, if you plan to sell this property, and then you have to, start calculating your capital gains.
You can watch live TV on our website, mpnow.in. Find us on Facebook at facebook.com/magicbricksnow. And don't forget to click the like button. You can also follow us on Twitter at magicbricksnow. To stay updated with all our programming, hit the subscribe button on our YouTube channel by logging on to youtube.com/magicbricksnow.